Can you pray?
Definitely, let's do
Okay.
it. I think you're the first one to pray this show.
Oh, dear God, we thank you so much for this. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, I pray.
Amen! Oh my God, they were getting that on camera. It is another exciting episode of The Star Maker, hosted by yours truly, Joram, the Star Maker. Yes, and I'm super excited that I'm going to be talking to one of the models that I adore and love the most. And we discovered, and she's a teacher by profession, turned and morphed into a top model right now, who's working in New York, Paris, London, Milan, Spain, Barcelona, all the biggest fashion capitals of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me, the most beautiful, courageous, God-loving, she loves God to the fullest, a catch. Joy Winnie. Etienne D.
Atiamabe.
Oh my gosh, welcome back home.
Thank you, Jay.
You still remember the language. Because they told us when people travel overseas, when they go Evulaya, they end up forgetting their mother tongue.
When we go to Rome, we behave like Romans. So that's the drill.
I'm in love with her accent as well. It's still
Thank
the
you.
same. So welcome back home.
Thank you, Jay. It's so good to find you glowing, alive, and
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. And did you just copy me? Because I decided to wear white, and then you also decided to wear white. I think it was telepathy.
It's the white for me.
It's the white for us.
For us.
Okay, so Kate Joy Winnie, let's go back in time. Let's go back, back in the days. Tell us, how is it growing up as a child?
So growing up as a Kate Joy Winnie, I grew up in a very humble background, something I don't regret at all. Even if there were hardships, the hardships made who I am today. The values I was taught at home. I remember the first thing when I was growing up that my mother really made sure introduced to me was church.
Amazing.
Because she knew if I had God, I would grow up into an amazing young woman. And so even if we lacked so many things, but we had God at home. And I didn't grow up at home for the most part because my mom was in the village. She is a teacher. And my dad was like a city hustler, from being a bartender to being a sales,
Yes.
Yeah, so I grew up in church because that was the only secure place I would be assured for a meal. And so I grew up in a humble background, and I'm grateful for that humility, really, because it has taught me to be grateful for even the little. Even when I get so much, I always have that humility that I was taught from appreciating the little things that we had growing up. I remember even going to my high school, we had to make breaks with my family that I had to go with to Troll Girls School. So I grew up in a very humble background, but I am grateful for every single bit of it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm super happy, and I like the fact that you grew up in a very Christian environment, you learning so much about God. So what are some of these schools that you went to before you transitioned into being a teacher?
Yeah.
I know so many people are shocked. She's a teacher by profession as well.
Yeah, I'm a teacher by profession, and I'm grateful for that as well. So, Joram, I went to 7 schools in my primary.
Oh my God. Story of my life.
Yeah,
Yes.
I went to 7 schools. Reason being it was always hard to pay school fees because my dad was juggling here and there, and I really understood him. He really wanted to keep me in school. So whenever I went for one school, I would spend there 2 terms, and then the school fees would kind of jam, and then I had to change to another school. So I basically didn't see my reports over the years. Yeah, I didn't see my reports. So I would leave the report and then go to another school, then be there for 1 term and then go to another school. So I went to so many schools. I went to Nsambia Junior, I went to KCC, I went to Kansanga Primary, I went to Sunlight, and then there are so many schools there. I even went to the village. But the school I sat for my primary leaving examination, I was there for just 2 days.
What?
Basically 2 days. I sat at Bukasa Primary School, and then my mom was like, Joy, this time round, I don't want you changing schools for high school. I'm sure God is going to provide the tuition you will study, and I want you to go to a very good school.
Amazing.
So she took me to Troll Girls School, and in our stories, she always told me that it's a school she always wanted to go to as a young girl, but she could never afford the tuition there.
So she had to sacrifice all her efforts into the daughter. Yes.
Yeah, I remember the first time I went to preparing for Tororo Girls School. We had to make bricks like together with my family, my dad and everything, and I was glad they mounted to the amount they needed for me to go to Tororo Girls School. So I went to Tororo Girls School. That's the school like I got really attached to, yeah, compared to the primary schools and stuff. So those are the schools I went to, and
so literally you did your entire O-level and A-level
at Tororo Girls School.
Oh my God, 6 years.
6 years. My mom
Kudos
told
to
me when I was
TGS.
yay! I'm proud of being like an OG of Tororo Girls School.
So what did you study at university?
So at university I studied a Bachelor's of Arts with Education in English and Literature.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then you became a qualified professional teacher.
Yeah.
So did you ever, practice your profession at any 1 minute?
Yeah, I did. I had a chance to practice my profession like during SP, and for my school practice I went back to Tororo Girls School to do like a give back, inspire those young girls. And then later at Mienga High, I taught for a while and then also taught at Kairos High School. I taught like for a year, I should say. Yeah.
And how was the experience like? Did you passionately love it? Was it something that you would actually, drop modeling and then go back to at some point?
Yeah, I honestly am proud to be a teacher because it's something that I should say runs in our blood. My grandmother was a teacher, my mom was a teacher, and growing up, I always had like that teaching kind of spirit. I always loved teaching Sunday school.
You were a leader from day one.
From day one. So I was glad when I got a government scholarship at university to do education because... Thank you.
Yes.
So I love teaching, and yeah, if there is an opportunity after later in the years, maybe I'll come in a different way, not the same way, but once a teacher or as a teacher, maybe have a school.
It's very, very unbelievable that Ake Joy Winnie was a teacher.
Yeah.
Up to this day, I keep telling myself, really? Okay, so how were you discovered? How did you transform from being a teacher into becoming a fashion model? The world must be wondering, how were you discovered?
Yeah. So actually I loved modeling, like it was in me, yeah. Even when I loved being a teacher and I worked towards it, I also loved modeling.
So how did you start the professional journey of modeling? Yes.
So once I finished high school and stuff, I had to concentrate with education at campus because we don't want to get retakes.
I know.
Yeah, and then I had a few agencies there, but we just like, started on agencies. And then afterwards, I became so intentional while I was still looking for better schools. And that's how I went for A. Bryant's. I met you. And that's the day I'll never forget because it marked the start of something new. I was sad about leaving school, leaving my job, but it ended up being like a blessing in disguise. Something I'll never forget. So when I got in the room, I remember I even had walked all the way from Chibuli to come through to Garden City. I was sweaty.
Passion.
Yeah, and I just went in because there were so many models. I was even skeptical. I was like, will I really get to see? Even walk. I honestly came for the money at that time because I was jobless and broke. But I ended up meeting you, and I remember you saying, "Where have you been? Where have you been?" And I kept quiet. I was like, okay.
Speechless. Because I remember when I talked to you, you just went numb.
Yeah.
Because, ladies and gentlemen, I remember the minute Akechi walked in, I was like, oh my God, there's a supermodel that just walked in. And then I kept asking her, are you signed to an agency? Are you represented? And she just went numb. Yeah. What was going through your mind?
Mixed feelings. I was like, okay, he actually sees something in me as well. You mean I can be a JMM model? And then you asked me, are you happy? Or that's when I was like, yes, I'm so happy. And since then, like, things started to work. I got a school, and then you would call me, hey, come into the agency, and then rush back. I would leave my kids with an assignment, like, hey guys, I'm coming back. And my kids were so supportive.
Amazing.
Yeah, they were really loving. They
Didn't
knew
they
I was
like
a
bully
model.
you? Did they call you like teacher model, oh the teacher model, something
Yeah, they
like
used
that?
to call me teacher model, but in a good sense because they loved me.
Amazing.
So whenever I would tell them, hey, can you do this assignment for 30 minutes? I'll be back. They would know, like, okay, teacher's gone for like a modeling gig. Yeah, so that's how it all started.
That's how it all started.
Thanks to
So you are so much welcome. I'm so proud of you.
Thank
and
you.
then how did you transcend the borders of Uganda to start your international journey in Cape Town?
Wow. So I still remember as though it was yesterday, because everything and like how things moved so fast from that day, like it was so fast. I think that's why it's so good to believe in God's timing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because once that season comes, it's gonna be fast and everything will be in order. God will place people.
Like everything is literally
yeah,
aligned.
exactly. And He'll even put forth people who are going to lead you through your next journey without hustling. So the most impactful moment for me was when I was at the airport. The very first time I was going to South Africa.
Was it like your first time on the plane,
Yeah,
first time to travel?
like it was my first time to travel. Like how would I? Like my parents wouldn't afford that. I wouldn't afford that. But you know, like even the scripture tells us, like your talent will help you sit before kings and stuff.
Amen.
So it's my talent that helped me go. Yeah. So I was at the airport and I remember Jay, you asking me that, hey Joy, it's time to exchange your money.
I remember. Yes.
Yeah, and you know, I was so grateful for everything that had already happened, for scouting me, for believing in me. And pocket money wasn't something that I was going to dwell in. I just wanted, like, I was already grateful. I wanted to go begin this new journey. So I texted you and I was like, Jay, I actually don't have any money, but I'm okay. I remember you got me all the change that was left, and that's when I knew, like, you were a person that God sent to bless me. You're like my father, my other father. Yeah. So I remember that, and I ran to the bathroom, to the airport bathroom to cry. And I didn't cry because I was sad or pathetic. I cried because I believed miracles happen every day, and I was grateful, and how God sends people that you even didn't know for a long time, and they are going to change your life and they are going to bless you. So that was, I remember going to the plane and my eyes were red, they were puffy, and it was all out of gratefulness and stuff. So that was like my first experience of going to
Cape
start
Town.
my
Start your
Cape
entire journey.
Town.
So moving to Cape Town, you were one of the luckiest girls.
Yeah.
But I know Cape Town wasn't a bed of roses for you. We will talk about that bit.
Yeah.
So you arrive in Cape Town and literally you had to fly over to Europe in just a week to go do, Gucci.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that experience.
That was like breathtaking, Jay. That was breathtaking. I told you things were moving so fast, so fast. And a week later, I was to fly to Owls and do the Gucci. It was so
Mind-blowing.
The things you prayed for and thought maybe they'll come 10 years later, and they are coming a month after.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like living the reality of my dreams, and it was so like going to Europe. I couldn't believe it.
I know.
I was like, okay, maybe this is not real, maybe this is real. I remember going for the runway. You know, the whole process of like the casting, the accommodation, the reception was just something I had never seen.
Totally different and mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember the day of the show, I was on the lineup and I just looked down and I was filled with tears. And in my mind, I was just like, God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the people that believed in me. Thank you that I can be on this runway with all these models and I can be here today. I remember looking down and crying for like the second of the lineup, and then going to walk the hell out of that show. I walked it.
Your best.
Yeah, I
you guys were
walked my
literally
best.
walking through fire or something like that.
I walked, like I felt every step. I waited for this, I prayed for this, it is here, and I'm going to experience every moment of it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you're back in Cape Town. How was the journey? Did it like kick off immediately?
It didn't. And I think that takes us back to the power of humility. Because like after working that big show, you would come back and feel like you're all over the world.
Yeah, like you feel like all the magazines are gonna book you, all the clients, and
but that's not what happened for me. As though like I had never worked for this big show and stuff. So Cape Town was like that season of my life as a model that groomed me, that gave me all these fashion model values, this fashion model behavior, all the things I would need later in the year. But of course, in that season, it was hard. It's so paramount to have a good mother agency. Like, if a model, you're watching this, it's good to have a supportive mother agency, who will believe in you. Because I was 1.5 years in Cape Town, I was just developing my book.
And literally you just went into debt. So let's talk about the model debt. To all the models that are watching out there, international modeling is not a bed of roses.
Yeah.
Because all of us, you know, it's the biggest aspiration that everyone that is watching the show and wants to be a model, wants to aspire, you know, to go on and work in, you know, Cape Town, New York, Paris, London, and Milan. But then I kept spending 1.5 years in Cape Town, and literally you're just piling up dates, piling up dates. It was emotionally draining for me because even me personally, when I was leaving my teaching profession in Uganda, I knew like, oh, I'm moving to another world. I'm going to make a lot of money.
I know money is gonna flow. My life is gonna change overnight. But that wasn't it. So for us, like every model, especially if you're going in for your first time in an international country, it's safer for you to be in the model house.
Absolutely.
And the model house isn't for free.
You pay for
every
it.
month. Yeah, you have to pay for it. So I wasn't working, meaning every single month that would go to my statement. The pictures I was taking, they weren't for free.
Sure.
Yeah, the portfolio, apart from the editorials of magazines, it was an emotional roller coaster. There are days that I would be motivated and there are days that I would feel down. I was strong like for the first 6 months, but being a human, it drains you. You're not working, you're not making money, you have siblings looking up to you and stuff. So I had seasons I cried, but I'm grateful I had good friends back in Cape Town. That's why most of the time my story has God, because God has been good to me from day one. Yeah.
But I know so many people that are watching must be wondering, did you at any one minute wanted to just pack your bags, come back here and go back into teaching?
Joram, I wanted to, like 1 year down, and I was like, Joram, I think this is not for me. Maybe I need to come back home and just teach and get my little salary and not be here like not knowing what tomorrow is gonna bring and stuff. I remember calling you sometimes. I'm like, Jay, it's really hard down here, you know.
Nah, you're not coming back.
Yeah, and Joram would be like, you're not coming back.
Yes.
And also what helped me to stay motivated was like I had a community. I remember Life Church. Hopefully some of them are watching. I love you guys so much. So I had a very good community. So those days that would be really hard, you know, they would help you financially, they would support you spiritually, so you would not think of other means of making ends meet. So I would just be patient and wait on God's timing. So Cape Town was a hard road.
I know. It wasn't a bed of roses. So to all the models that are watching, always remember that. Dreams are valid, but you must put in the work. And it's not always, you know, roses. There's so many thorns out there. Exactly. And then what was that mind-blowing moment for you to leave Cape Town and then go to New York?
Okay.
How did it happen? Because if I remember very well, you know, you before leaving Cape Town, you had to shoot for the BMW. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, the first Ugandan model ever to shoot a BMW campaign. Yes. Yeah.
So I remember it was around 2019, and that was like a year. It's been like a year and a half along, like in Cape Town and stuff.
Without work.
Yeah, without work. And I should say I'm not totally like regretful for being in that year of Cape Town, because I'm grateful I passed through that. It gave me the pictures, it gave me that strong portfolio.
Sure.
And those were some of the documents that they were going to use for my USA visa and stuff.
So very strong sheets.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember after a while, the agency actually was now letting go of the model house in South Africa. And they were like, you know what, Joy, you need to go maybe rent out.
Oh my God.
So I was like, I haven't worked for a year and a half. So if I rent out, how am I going to pay for the rent? That's the moment I was like, I need to go home. I remember even I talked to you at that time and you're like, okay, Joy, you've gotten all your tear sheets, you've built your book, it's okay.
Just come back home and wait for the US visa.
And wait for the US visa. And so I let it go. I was somehow sad coming back. I felt like I was coming back the same way I left financially, living alone, of course, the model book and everything. I was like, okay, if it's gonna be like that, then I'm ready to go. But just a few days before, that's when I get my call from Germany and they're like, okay, you're coming for the BMW campaign.
Hey.
And I was like, okay, God, this is what you were doing this whole time.
I know.
The moment of sadness I had like turned overnight. The 1 year debt and a half that I had accumulated was going to be paid off by a campaign that was gonna shoot for like just 1 week.
Wow.
Then I knew like, okay, the wait was worth it, the struggle was worth it, the tears were worth it and everything. So that was like another start of something new. It was a transforming thing because after I went to Germany, I knew I'm coming back to South Africa as a tourist, not a model.